Hey, I don't want you making the same mistakes that thousands of people are making when they look at starting a business of their own. Stick around for the first in a series of the seven most common mistakes people make when starting a business.
This is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
Oh my gosh, one of the primary reasons I've gotten into business for myself, into the space of coaching and mentoring and training and leadership, is because I really want to pour into people and help them not make some of the common mistakes that are being made, not making some of the mistakes that I made in business and sometimes in life. So, when we started this show, when we started the podcast and we came up with the name, we were focusing on pitfalls and profits, things that were going to make you money, things that were going to help you be successful if you did these things. We haven't spent a lot of time on the pitfalls, what to look out for, what to avoid. And so this series is about the seven biggest mistakes that people are making when starting or buying a business. And I want you to avoid them. I want to help you avoid them because people are making these mistakes. They're making important decisions in their careers and in their life, and yet they're making common mistakes that they could avoid. So this is going to be kind of similar to the David Letterman's top 10 list, if you remember those, if you're that old. But these aren't funny because these things will cost you. What are they going to cost you? What's at stake? Well, one big thing is your money. If you get this wrong, you're going to lose thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Candidly, my investment in my first business was six figures. You could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars if you don't avoid some of these mistakes. The second thing it's going to cost you is your time. Making some of these mistakes about getting into business, starting a business, it's going to cost you time, as in maybe you get in later than you could have. That's going to cost you some money, possibly money you could have earned, but it's also going to delay the amount of money you could earn. But it also means you wasted time that could have been used better, or you miss an opportunity completely, entirely, because because of making some of these mistakes. It's just delayed it to a stage where you just missed the chance. And also, candidly, in depending on how old you are, you may not get another chance if you make some of these mistakes. So depending on upon your age. And one of the things I always like to talk about when we talk about time is the fact that, candidly, I think it's your most valuable asset, because it's finite. There's only so much of it in the day. And consequently, when you lose it or use it in the wrong way, it costs you. And so it's because it's gone forever. And so I don't want to see you make these mistakes, because again, it's going to cost you. And then the last thing is, quite frankly, if business ownership is not the right thing for you, or as I sometimes say, if you ought to keep your day job, then if you make some of these mistakes and you do get into business for yourself, you could have lost potentially some career advancement opportunities with the employer that you were with. So making some of these mistakes is going to cost you. That was my biggest point. All right, so the first one I want to talk about, and this is a toughie right out of the gates, but Are you chasing a fad, or are you getting in the early stages of a serious trend? You know, you can't always know. You're not always going to be sure, but you want to watch what's going on around you. And there's some things you can do to help avoid chasing a fad that fizzles out in a couple of years. Again, after you've invested tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands and a lot of your years of your life, there's some things you can do to see whether it's going to be a fad or whether it's really a trend that you might be able to leverage and get in on in the early stages or in the early days. So, what can you do to have an impact on knowing whether you're chasing a fad or you're getting in on a trend? One of the things is I like to say is, are there health implications connected to it? Now, I'm not saying Americans don't always make the right decisions regarding their health. Look how long the cigarette industry has been around. However, even with that one, prices have skyrocketed. You just don't see people smoking anymore. And you see, a lot of taxation and things going on around smoking. So health implications. I think one of the biggest ones to me about this that seemed to be a trend and really turned out to what I would call a fad was the vaping. I actually, I spend a lot of time, my last 24 years of my life, in franchising. I actually did start to see some vaping franchises pop up on the market. And yet, bam, this was not only overall, had some negative health implications right out of the gate, but there was the huge thing about marketing to young people, how it was going to negatively impact young people's health. And then I believe there were some explosions of some of the that harmed people, that physically harmed or hurt people. So, yeah, are there still some vape shops around? Yeah, there are. But again, I think fundamentally the whole industry that was starting to develop came to a screeching halt. So that to me was clearly going to be a fad and was not really going to be a trend. And it was pretty obvious how things happened and just shut that one down. I think another consideration, another thing you can do is try to consider whether there are any government decisions coming on. Maybe there's some legislation that's en route. Maybe there's some local sentiments about a certain kind of a business that'll impact it if you started that business. So, for example, maybe you're looking at a business that's got requires really low paying unskilled labor. There's a lot in several states right now. There's the impact of a high minimum wage for low skilled labor. So, not to get into all of that kind of political stuff, but there's a massive in some states, and so maybe this government impact or legislation or regional local sentiments are going to impact the business that you're thinking of starting or you're thinking of buying. So try to seek out and think through, are there government things that could impact this business if you started it or if you bought one. A third thing I like to talk about is to talk to people in similar businesses or talk to smart people, talk to experienced people that have been around, that have started businesses themselves, and really get their feedback, get their input. What do they think about this? Again, not everybody's always going to know, but experienced people are experienced for a reason. Successful people are successful for a reason. They're smart. And so they can give you insights and input that you're not going to know, by yourself, or if you're sitting in a vacuum. And so I encourage you to talk to successful, experienced people. And I'm emphasizing those two words, experienced, successful. And you're going to understand as we go through the 7 common mistakes, you're going to understand why I'm emphasizing experienced, successful people. Okay, the fourth one, after we've talked about, are there health implications? Granted, people make unhealthy decisions, but are there health decisions that could impact this and make it a fad, not a trend? Are there government and legislative decisions coming, or impact coming? Talk to people, experienced, successful people. Then the fourth one is do your own research. This is what's so powerful about the internet today, is that you can find out a whole lot of information about a whole lot of topics. So do your own research, read up about it. If it is a franchise model, talk to the people. They should be experts and experienced in this space. Yeah, maybe they're trying to sell you that franchise, so you have to be a little careful there. But they are people who have started that business. So they're going to be able to give you some insights and some help as to whether or not things are really trending and real and for real, or whether it's a short-term play. It's really a fad. But do some research. Don't just jump on a bandwagon. Don't just go, wow, that looks awesome. Or I happened to see one when I was in another state on business, and I think we should do that here. Do your homework. Do your research. What can you find? What's being written about it? What's being said about it? Are there, again, similar industries, or even are there industry experts in that space, and what are they projecting? But do your homework. You want to go into this with your eyes open and having done your due diligence. So, mistake number 1 of the 7 most common mistakes when people start their own business is whether the business is a fad or whether the business is actually trending.